drama and suspense.
Yeah.
Tell me you recorded those sounds. Did you get those sounds?
You know what? I thought I heard a voice earlier.
Lane, Talia?
Should we roll?
No. There's something over there. No. Oh! Holy shit!
I mean, I guess the main thing that excited me about doing this thing was just being able to kind of put the series back on track in a way. We always knew from the beginning that we wanted the movie to have this kind of haunted hayride kind of take on the Blair Witch. You know, it's like you could like just go out in the woods and just like film people running around like scared for their life again. But we wanted to take a different perspective and like use the found footage angle and make that something that just immerses you into the horror even more. And so we wanted to literally put you in this POV of these characters and just, you know, throw you in this environment and just make it relentless.
Just keep walking around and just give me lots of coverage real quick before you get into the Valerie bit.
You know, what really excited us about playing specifically in the Blair Witch world was not only our love of the original film and our friendship with two of the three kind of original filmmakers, but it was also just specifically, Adam and I were at a point in our careers where we really wanted to make a true horror movie because we felt like we were known for making horror movies, but we also felt like we never really made one. You know, A Horrible Way to Die certainly isn't one. Your Next kind of is one, but it really becomes a screwball comedy. And The Guest wasn't one. You know, we were actually working on The Guest while I was writing this film. And even the VHS movies always felt like they were like a little more funny and experimental than straight up trying to scare people. But we wanted to try to scare people.
You know, like when I was first like kind of approached by Lionsgate about the possibility of doing this film, I mean, to me, I was instantly like, yes, let's do it. You know, like there's, like somebody's going to do this thing, you know, and I just felt like that the second film had gone so off the rails. I was like, whoever's going to do this next one, A, they can do it and it can be really good, but B, it's like this is really a chance to, you know, to set things right in the franchise and, you know, be able to kind of go back to my roots as a kid and kind of play off of the things that I loved about that film. Blair Witch Project was one of those cornerstone movies that, you know, growing up, it just made a huge impact on me.
I'd always been a fan of the original film, and when Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett were brought on to write and direct, I was really excited. And Lionsgate asked my wife and I, we produced together, and asked us to come on board to help make the movie, and we jumped at the opportunity and thought it would be a fun movie to make and scary and a great experience.
Temp narration, take one, take two, three. When James was 4 years old, his older sister disappeared while making a documentary near the town of Burkittsville, Maryland.
We've been talking to Lionsgate about another Blair Witch movie for a long time, really ever since they bought Artisan and acquired the rights to Blair Witch. And we had talked about, we had gone down several roads.
We've loved the idea of an origin story, like a prequel that kind of revolves like a period piece around Ellie Kedward's story.
Well, basically, we wanted to make The Witch. We pitched them a couple of times on, you know, 1600s, the original village, the original stuff happening.
And we had pitched them a sequel. We actually wrote a script that was a sequel, but it just didn't, even for us as the writers, there's just something was just not right. Like the planets weren't aligning for that version of the movie. So we kind of stepped back.
And ultimately they wanted to go back into the found footage arena. And I think for Ed and I, we were just like, well, we've already done that, and you know, it's probably best for someone else to kind of pursue that.
So we knew the interest was there. And then Ed and I got to be friends with Adam and Simon because we both did VHS 2 together. So we did Sundance together, and we did South by Southwest and did a lot of these things with them, hung out with them, got to know them.
And they were just really good guys, really talented guys. and they really loved Blair Witch. Like, it was one of the things that we talked about even before this movie. Like, they were like wondering, you know, why hasn't there been another Blair Witch movie? And we kind of told them, you know, the process that we were in. And it was shortly thereafter that Lionsgate approached them about doing it. And so we knew that the film was in good hands. So our whole thing was like, if we're not going to do it, then, you know, these guys will probably be our first choice as far as other filmmakers to kind of take what we created and expand it.
I mean, really, I can't think of anybody that I would have rather have taken it and done something than those guys.
So before we went into production, because our project was top secret, we weren't able to loop in the original filmmakers as early as we might have liked, just because, you know, we wanted to make sure, you know, my first draft was a big departure from, I think, what Lionsgate was expecting, and certainly a big departure from the original film.
You know, like the first draft of the script was a lot more like gory and crazy. It had all this like body horror in it, you know, some of which made it into the film, you know, but it's kind of nice because it's just a little tiny bit now. But at the time, it was just this big gore fest. And I think after he wrote that draft, we sat down and we rewatched the original film together, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, you're like, this is not like, this is about like, you know, what goes bump in the night, not like, you know, not all this like gory carnage and stuff like that.
And James, you think you're gonna find the house?
Maybe. I hope so.
So you really think your sister could still be out there after all these years?
All I know is if there is any chance at all that I could find out what happened to her, I need to at least try.
And what about the legends?
Legends?
Yeah, do you believe at all in the stories about the Blair Witch?
The great thing about Blair Witch is it's not just a legend, but it's a legend based in ancient history, and that's something that like I wanted to change certain things. Because initially, you know, I was going into like maybe this is like a different kind of parallel universe Blair Witch kind of thing, but more I just wanted to be like, I like leaning into that kind of scholarly Blair Witch debate. I like the idea of being like, there's some debate whether it's the basement or the attic. Now the attic is something I added, and actually that's one of the few notes that the Blair Witch filmmakers gave me that I was just like, guys, sorry, I'm changing it. Like it's a little bit, it's mine now, and they were cool with that. They were totally cool with that. We get that, because they were like, you know, well, there's no attic, you know, there's a basement, and I was like, there's a basement and an attic.
Our thing was like, well, it should end in the basement, right? Just go and end it in the basement. And they just had a different need, and ultimately totally get that.
He would take them up to his attic and make one stand in the corner while he killed the other one.
There's been some debate on that, actually, whether it was the attic or the basement.
But that's why I put that line in there. There's some debate over whether Rustin killed them in the cellar or the attic. And this was actually one of like Greg Hale's notes. Now, in the original film, there's no debate. He kills them in the cellar if the house didn't have an attic.
We had an existing house when we shot our movie, and Ben Rock, who was our production designer on that, did an awesome job kind of taking what we had and making it very cool. But it was sort of by design to be disorienting. When you go in, you're not quite sure what room you're in. You go down, you hear voices. She runs upstairs, runs downstairs, and what we had access to was the basement, so they kind of descend into the basement. But it's, one could argue, the whole house is supernatural.
This house that the three filmmakers in our film entered doesn't exist in reality, in the Blair Witch reality. Like, that house burned down in the 40s.
It was burnt down post Rustin Parr incident, and was never found. The house was never found during the search party. So one could argue the house itself is a ghost.
And it's like, well, because you're in the Blair Witch thing, you know, whatever this entity is, you're in its space-time.
And I think the same thing happened to the kids, to the guys, the people in Blair Witch, where they are transported to a different reality.
So the original house doesn't exist anymore. The farmer who had it, we were told, got tired of fans going there to taking pictures and tore it down. But what happened was that was a really valuable resource for us. So we went and we combed the internet for every fan photo we could find, because we got views of the house that didn't necessarily show up in the original movie. And then we did all these drawings of the house as it originally was. And then we sort of began building off of that.
He built not only an outside with some interior that you could look into out in the middle of this, which I, to this day, don't know how he did it in the place that he did it, in the time that he did it, with the money he did it. He really did a phenomenal job.
That was actually kind of the funnest part of the shoot for me, was visiting Tom's set and seeing that he'd kind of built us like a Blair Witch like theme park that was like just for us.
Which way's the entrance? It's
Right side. The set itself is 3 stories tall, so that Adam could get very long, continuous takes, and the actors never have to break character to change camera position. So we built it out of huge, sort of 12-inch by 12-inch timbers and entire trees that we cut down for, say, the cellar ceiling that you can see. And we lined it with lath, which are thin sheets of wood, and covered it in plaster. And so the whole point was to make it for real, so that Adam and I were then able to go through with a fire axe and a sledgehammer and break holes wherever we wanted holes in the walls. Some were to match holes in the original film, and others were just like, Adam wanted to see through the wall into a different place, so we just take the fire axe and like bust through. Or the camera needs to turn around here and there's not quite enough room behind it, so we just bust through the wall. And so it was a lot of fun. I've never got to do a set like that where you make it look better racing through with an axe.
It was incredible seeing the house for the first time, the one that he built on stage, and being in the house. It was so fucking creepy. Sorry, but it was so fucking creepy. In real life, I mean, things dripping. He thought about everything.
I actually went on YouTube, saw the original clip, went and saw the real house, the recreation of it, and Brandon and I were just floored by that. It was like, it was kind of outer body in a way, just because we're doing this film, and I was a huge fan of the first film, you know? And now I'm standing there looking at the house that they are going into in the end of the first film, and it's so real and it's so exact to every detail. He helped a lot because it was very little you had to do with your imagination. It was all there.
So if you watch the film, the room they go into at the very beginning in our film, that's a recreation of the original entry room. It's the same colors, it's just there are doors now where the doorways originally were empty. And then the iconic staircase that they go up with the handprints, we do it once without handprints, and then we convert it to once with handprints. The fireplace is an exact replica, so we try to just like pepper the world with little bits from the original.
What? Makes no sense.
I love what they do in the new film with the playing with day and night, which we really probably couldn't have pulled off, but because of the way we shot our movie back in the day, like real time was like a part of what we were doing. But we did always play with the idea of that there's something that space isn't, that basically you can't get out of there once this thing has you, whatever it is.
When was the last time you saw us?
Earlier this afternoon.
Liar!
You're not lying. Like, look at the...
It's been 5 days, maybe 6. I don't even know. The sun is not coming up. You guys can see what she's doing to these woods, right? You can see what she's doing to these woods.
First of all, the first film feels like it takes place in a time loop. I've never gotten confirmation from their guys if that was something they intended or not, but it feels like they lose track of time and space in the woods, and certainly we wanted to lean into that and explore that further. That was, because that's to me one of the more interesting ideas.
There's always time overlaps in these movies, and that's the way we kind of designed the first one, where once the 3 filmmakers, and the same thing with the second film, with Blair Witch, once everybody gets into the woods and they cross the threshold, whatever that is, they're not getting out. Whatever the thing is in the woods has grabbed them, and now it's going to basically manipulate the world around them and their reality until it kills them or whatever it wants to do with them. So that's kind of a repeating thing that's happened throughout the mythology of the Blair Witch.
Did you see her?
And that was something we really wanted people to feel, you know, not just the various time loops and the fact that ultimately, you know, Lisa is creating the video that draws her out there to begin with, which is what Lane and Talia found, which is what they, you know, and we went out of our way to really make it clear that, like, remember, they're back in the same place where they found the video, and it's the video that's in his camera. You know, we're giving people, it's not subtle, but it was fun to play with that stuff.
That's the cool thing about, you know, the original film is just like the mystery and like all the questions that it asks as opposed to answering anything at all. And so we wanted to kind of carry on that legacy more than anything. You know, like, because what really makes it scary, I think, is that you don't know what's out there. And we wanted to raise the stakes on, you know, kind of the first film too. So it's one of those things where, you know, in the first film, you see absolutely nothing going on in the woods. It's all about, like, perceived, you know, I think the closest thing to seeing something is, you know, when they're in the tent in that one scene and, you know, it sounds like kids are shaking the tent, you know. And with this film, it's like we knew we had to kind of step up and show something of what's in the woods. But, you know, for me, it was important to allow, you know, people's imagination to still work, even if you are seeing something lurking out there in the woods. It's very vague, you know, and we designed specifically, you know, the things out in the woods to have a kind of amorphous look.
We didn't want to do what the first film did and show people nothing. And just scare them with sound design and atmosphere and horrific concepts.
For the original Blair Witch, we didn't know how the movie was going to end. You know, we knew that they were going to end up in that cellar, but we were like, okay, are lights going to be coming from the ground, or is, you know, he going to be levitating, or is the witch going to come out and attack them? I mean, we had no idea, but we had no budget. You know, there was no option of like, hey, let's get somebody in a suit that looks really creepy and do it. I love the fact that they had a chance to do it here, and they did it, and it's very subtle.
So we knew we wanted to show something. But to me, it was actually kind of important that what we showed was never clearly the Blair Witch. And to me, I see the Blair Witch as being not even something that you necessarily could show physically. Adam referred to it on set generally as the creature. Sometimes we would call it the B-dubs, but that was just a joke. You know, I have my theory about what the thing we show in the film is, or what the person we show in the film is. I think Adam has a different one. And I think, you know, I think it's probably not something we want to definitively say, but I will say definitively that in my opinion, and I believe in Adam's opinion, and in everyone who is kind of creatively involved, we do not show the Blair Witch.
So it doesn't have to necessarily be a witch, that's what we know it as, but I like to think that it could be anything. It could be something that's been there for thousands of years, that we've just started recording these events, you know, in recent times, but you know, it could have been there for long before we were around. So that's interesting to contemplate. You know,
there's all kinds of things that don't make sense, you know, in reality in both movies. So that's really, you know, once you enter the Blair Witch bubble, man, all bets are off.
You know, so we tried to take all those little things that you heard about in the first movie and expand on them, and then even try to, you know, kind of play off of them in the movie. You know, so everything we did was based on sort of like the lore that was created by the first film, and it's such a rich mythology that they created. It's insane, you know, like it's such a well-rounded kind of scope of things.